The Therapist and the Coach podcast is a space for real relational conversations about what it means to be human.
In a world obsessed with fixing, achieving, and self help, we invite you to pause, lean in, and discover the wisdom already inside.
Together, we explore how healing, growth, and transformation can happen not in isolation, but in connection.
Through open hearted dialogue, we challenge the myth of self regulation and self improvement, offering instead co regulation, psychological safety, and the power of being seen.
Happy Thursday!
Happy Thursday!
I
Sunny.
know we've been talking for an hour before this, and I really appreciate it because there was some co-regulation needed. And then I had a bit of an emotional morning, so I wish we'd actually recorded that part of the podcast, like recorded that because it was a really beautiful conversation. But we'll do that another time. But today,
Maybe, Lerae, maybe we can throw like a little hint for our audience for next time what we were talking about, what we're going to talk next time about, just to throw it a little bit. And we talked about the experience in different industry. We were talking about the coaching industry and what's happening. There's a lot of changes and a lot of chaos, and it's happening in so many other systems right now. There are the old kind of collapsing and the new is right now forming, but we're right now in a flux in a way that we don't know it's the old, that's what we had, and we maybe didn't feel belong there or that, but that's what we did. And now we are transforming to something else that we don't even know the world, whether it's the world itself, businesses, the whole thing feels like what's next. It doesn't feel like the old is still there and the new has not formed. And it creates like an identity sometimes crisis inside of people, or it's like who I am, what am I doing, why am I doing, and how should I move on in these conditions. I know it's right now very amorphic what I'm saying right now, but I think this is what we probably will talk next time, um, and dive into it because there's so many systems right now that are in chaos,
well,
and
and it
it's
really does talk about the collective, like we can experience the things that we've talked about, all the different aspects of neuroscience and all the rest of the co-regulation, self-regulation, all the stuff and all the reasons why and all that. But at the end of the day, we're all experiencing it on some level. And so to actually have a place to talk about it is a huge relief to the nervous system. And it's
exactly.
another way of co-regulating, calming, bringing peace to one's experience and making it more palatable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll look forward to that.
Yeah, me too. And kind of the message that we don't need to fix right now anything. We just need to be together with all of it
Yes.
and keep
Mhm.
ourselves intact with who I am, especially at this time. But that's something that we will dive next time because I we can easily all of a sudden lose ourselves in that and
Yes, and
forget what we
sometimes
came
we
from.
do.
So last time we talked about the imposter syndrome still, and we started talking about the process of individuation because it has to do also with the imposter syndrome. And just to kind of remind people that hasn't seen the last episode, which I recommend to because we were just going to continue today what we started. And we said that basically when a baby is born, there is the first phase of fusion of you shuffle you basically mom and the baby are one, and that's the way it needs to. Mom is extension of the baby and the baby is
Yeah,
extension of mom, and that's a phase that is necessary, and that dependency is crucial because
right.
then again we usually say to people dependency is bad. If we could not be dependent on somebody that provide us that safety, then that dependency is not going to grow to independency if that phase is not completed. And that's why we see a lot of narcissism later on, or very injuries from things that we didn't get necessary ingredients for our well-being to grow, to be dependent on somebody else who can be there for us without needing anything from us. That's the trick. So maybe from there now we talked about that part of that fusion,
Mhm.
and if it's okay, I may want to just start continuing that part.
Yeah, it's totally okay. I did before we jumped into it. I want to remind people that you can join this conversation. We are inviting people to join us, audio or video. All you need to do is send an email to support@souldesigns.ca and put podcast in the subject, and my assistant will send you the link and the time and the date and everything you need to show up and be part of this conversation. So I just want to invite anyone who feels the call to be here and join this conversation. I'd love you to be the first. I'm just speaking to whoever's ready to be the first.
Yeah,
But yeah, go ahead and let's jump in. I
and
just wanted
just
to,
basic, and maybe say to people they don't have to show their face or their
yeah, so
identity. That
audio
it's
is fine,
do
video is
however
fine,
comfortable it is for you. So
on the phone, but it is a Zoom link, so it's
right.
however you want to join and whatever.
Yes, yes. Thank you for reminding me about that.
No
Thank
problem. Go
you.
ahead. And I've got one more other thing to say actually, is that
Please.
I don't really know. I'm not bought into this whole syndrome thing. It's what we're talking about and it's what's in common culture to describe. So language is important to relate
Right,
to.
right.
But I also need to say that we're talking about this from the standpoint of, why it happens and that it's the human condition. And it can be healed. It's not a syndrome you have to live with. It's not a, like, I think
No,
maybe somebody wrote a book and called it imposter syndrome, or like, I don't really know where that language came from. It, it just describes something that we're talking about that we're trying to bring some normalcy to because it's so ingrained and there's shame embedded in all of
yes.
this and
Hmm.
thinking you're the only one. So you're not the only one. And you don't have to live with it. It's a
No,
choice to actually unpack and heal and or address the pieces of self that might need to be addressed in order to move beyond it. But that's possible. So I just wanted to put that out there.
thank you. And I thank you. And I'm so grateful that you mentioned that it's so unfortunate sometimes we label things that we're already shamed and then they shame us again. That something
I
is wrong.
know it's a double
That
shaming.
something is wrong with you,
I've got
you
this
know?
so I'm broken. I've got this syndrome. I'm like, do you? I don't I don't really buy that. But yeah.
No, no. It's really a crime to do that because then we were shamed from the beginning, the parts of us that we could not be out with. That's
Mm.
why we might develop a different identity. We have to sometimes lie, to exaggerate, to protect ourselves. It's a protection.
Become the tree that's growing
Become the tree.
sideways that we
Yes,
referenced a
yes,
couple
just to
podcasts
survive,
ago.
but to still stand. To stand, no bent, but stand up. It's hard, it's heavy, but that's the only way we could. And you're absolutely right. We can even trees after them when they modify when they grow, you can't really put a cast on them to that. But in reality, when what we know about neurobiology and relationship neuropsychology is that everything is remoldable inside. It's really remoldable when we are, I want to say, doing the right thing, when we are actually attending to the right place rather than shaming it. And that's the reason we also talk about right now the process of individuation. Because if you don't have, then again, you have half a person to raise you inside, meaning they might be very willing parents and very sweet, but they're not healed. They're automatically, vibrationally, whether they want or not, going to transfer that to the baby. That's not a choice. That's who they are. You can't become something that you're not. A parent that is not yet an adult, that can be actually, by the way, no matter what age they are, and they're incomplete inside, there is no way they can give something that they don't have. So once that is interrupted, the process of individuation is never progressed actually. Then we're looking at us being half and try to survive that half by ourselves. And that's not safe. We cannot be who we are. We start really developing narcissistic injury. I mean, it needs to be about us when it wasn't about us. That's why you see people constantly, as adults, are constantly think about only themselves. Are they cruel? Are they mean? Are they that? No, they're just wounded. They really never got what they needed. Now that creates a problems in relationship and work and everything because relationship is relationship. It's not relationship and it's about you. But I want to take the shame away from that and actually feel compassion to all, including the people that, so many times we say about perpetrator and victim or somebody, it's all about them and it's all about, we're human and we're wounded and we survive the way we need to. We wouldn't do that if we had what we needed. So going back to that part of the enmeshment, that the baby is coming from nothing. They just completely depend on the mom. If mom and dad, by the way, both of
Mm-hmm.
them, the environment are, it's almost like a polar bear or somebody like that. They eat a lot of fat before the winter, so
Mm-hmm.
they can survive the winter. If they don't have the fat, they will die. They really eat so months later they won't eat, they don't eat for months in the winter. They don't have food. So they store enough fat so it would last for them so they can survive. It's something that they have to have in order to survive. If the baby doesn't get the ingredients from mom, not because mom doesn't want, because mom herself might be depleted, emotionally empty, and just relying on the baby to get her needs met. Because, somebody can hold me when my husband is constantly at work or I'm so alone anyway. Then the baby start being there for the mom.
Yes.
And that creates basically, it doesn't move. That enmeshment with the age as the baby grows doesn't really move anywhere. Now, if mom, let's say, is whole, by the way, is not perfect. It means like humans that actually can rely on her own emotional resources, rather than being irritated, for example, when the baby cries. It's a very simple example. We can be like all of a sudden with a baby that we love, as long as they're cute and as long as they're silent, as long as they smile. But in the night, when you need to go to there and when you're depleted, and you not only because of physically you're depleted, but you just don't have a room for anyone anymore because you're exhausted and your emotional well-being that suffers anyway now need to give to a baby. You just don't have it. It irritates you. So it's not a conscious thing, it's not a deliberate thing. But when the baby doesn't have that mom available, his or her growth is halted. Now, if mom is kind of like, I'm doing that again, she's whole, and the baby is relying on her, and I'm just kind of like doing this,
Mm-hmm.
because the baby is not whole, he's not really have any, he's just developing, the brain develops, everything develops. So if mom is standing, is have herself and support from dad, like the system is wide and empty, so to speak, to receive all the water coming. Then what happens is that the kids, as he grows, or she, are gradually getting to be themselves, gradually individuate. Now, for a healthy parent, that would be a welcoming thing because they are okay and they want inside, not intellectually, their baby to become independent, not to be dependent on them. That will happen if the baby actually gets the ingredient to start individuating. And that's the process of the age, developing of the brain, the hormones are shaping us. We're becoming that. But emotionally, if mom is not okay and dad are not okay, the baby will always try to take care of them while not getting what they need. And nothing grows. You grow in age, but this kiddo inside still have the deficits of something that they didn't get later on in life. Try to get that from so many places that will never get there. And you don't believe that you can get that because you didn't get it from originally. So all you get, like, okay, if I'm going to be rich and famous and being seen for what I can do, not because of who I am, because when you needed that for who you are, you didn't get that. You don't trust that. Then you start trying to compensate. It then becomes like a narcissistic wound that you try to pour things on it constantly to be valid, to be okay in the world, to be, to be acknowledged, to be, to have value by doing things rather than being things. So the process of healthy individuation is mom is okay, dad is okay. Like they're not like that, even mom and dad. And then they can be there for the young ones to get all they now need to feed them. They cannot be fed by the baby, which happens most many times, because if the baby start feeling that mom is tired and they feel everything, everything. Then immediately there becomes dysregulation. We talk about regulation. This is constantly the regulation here comes from at the beginning of life. Mom and dad or the caregivers are there for the baby. The baby cannot, they try to regulate the parents if they feel something is not right, but then they stop their growth. And if they stop the growth, they won't become whole, meaning they won't be individuated. And if you are individuated, you don't have to have anything that you're ashamed of. So all the imposter syndromes, all the things that you name it, there's nothing to be shamed, and you're just who you are in the world, moving forward like an anchor that no wind can shake it. And I'll stop here a little bit because there's so much more, but I think that I wanted to give the kind of the picture of how things are working, and if they don't work well, then as adults we start trying to compensate and pour things into the injury, into the that void that was created when we were very very young, just to feed it in, because the moment it's gone we're left with the emptiness that gets us to just running all the time, not be able to rest, not be able to sit a moment with ourselves, buying constantly things that we don't need. They don't really actually feed us. That's not what we need.
And I'd just like to also add to that that thank you, by the way, for that important explanation of how uh I guess the birthplace of narcissism and the tendency, the requirement to get those needs met. And I guess and there's like I'm sure there's a continuum. I've
It's a
experienced
continuum. There
a
is a continuum.
continuum from the full-blown disorder to maybe a narcissistic need that is maybe, very focused or very pinpointed. Or it could just be tendencies that one has
Absolutely.
to get needs
Absolutely.
met by others.
Absolutely.
And so much comes to mind for me around my experience and my view of all of this and my experience of all of this, both from my own healing and developmental journey in psychology. So I understand and relate to everything that you're saying. And I've learned that being a coach and learning the methodology, or I don't even think that's the right word, but the way of being with people where the idea of coaching is we meet people where they are. So you're
Mhm.
talking about, okay, this is how we enter into the world,
Mhm.
and we enter into the world in a way that we may not even be aware of as far as what our needs are, because
No,
we've never had to think about them, and the whatever emerged environmental, that nature nurture thing within the home, within the experience, whatever transaction or whatever transpired within that space is what we bring into the world. So I may be 19 and moving into my own life, and but yet I have and it isn't until I interact with the world that I actually start to see that I have these needs sometimes.
yes,
Like I leave
yes,
the home, I move
yes.
out into the world. So I start to behave in certain ways to get those needs met, and more of, move more away from the core of who I am, and my life becomes about meeting needs versus orienting around values. And this is something that I want to bring up because it was a pivotal awareness when I was doing my own coach training and my own personal work to support, because I really believed in, and it was part of the coach training methodology at that time, that I can't give to someone I don't, someone something I don't have myself. So that personal work and that understanding, same in counseling actually.
Same
I
thing.
I
And the same in
cannot be
parenting.
activated by my client to be able to really, I need to be whole. I need to be, use that
Yeah,
language that you're talking
yeah.
about, to be able to hold space for the experience of my client and not be activated and drawn in and begin to collude with their stuff,
Exactly.
which can happen in that, in that space of
Oh, absolutely.
co-regulation. We can
Absolutely.
co-regulate on around our patterns, or we can co-regulate around our healthy.
Exactly right. And as we mentioned, co-regulation is not necessarily being relationship with everyone about that, because it can be reinforce the old rather than the new.
Yes, yes. So this concept that I share with a lot of my clients, and it can be really eye-opening because I'm out there in the world adulting, with the different grown up parts of myself and then the non grown up or the more stunted emotionally and or need self. So I'm just making my way because we're so incredible. Human beings are really incredible. Their capacity to adapt, our capacity
Right.
to survive, our capacity to just figure stuff out and create and manifest, really, truly incredible. And then I come to this point where, like, everything I'm doing doesn't feed, like, the hole's still there. I
Yes.
got all the
Yes.
money, I got all the relationships, I got all the cars, I got all the boats, I got all the status, I got. Yet I'm so empty. But
Yes.
this idea of identifying needs and also taking responsibility to get them met for myself,
Yes.
that was groundbreaking to me. I'm like, hey, what? Because I actually had a hard time because I believed that it was, and I didn't even know I believed this until it was pointed out to me, that others were responsible for meeting my needs. But I can see how that would be a carryover from this, the
Absolutely.
original
Absolutely.
wound, like or the
Absolutely.
original need that wasn't met. It
Or
was
you
like
left
I
with a little
still
kid
needed,
inside. Yeah, you left with a little kid inside that still needs that. I mean, yes,
but
you
total freedom,
yes.
total freedom to
Yes.
recognize, hey, A, I can identify the need.
Yeah.
B, I can get it met myself. Not only that, but I can get it met in a way that I might not ever have that need again. Now,
You're right.
another need arises because that's also, because life is
It's the onion.
situational
It's
and
the
it,
onion. Yeah.
yeah. So, but here's the other thing is that I learned in that moment that my needs were driving my behavior and my trajectory, my relation were driving so much. It was almost like being hungry. You're
Yes.
hungry until you
Yes.
eat.
Yes. Yes.
The quality of the food you eat, I can eat at McDonald's because it's fast, or I can, nourish myself with something
That's it.
healthy and one's
That's
going to
exactly.
last longer and be more
Yes.
fulfilling. And, so there's that conversation. But this idea that if I'm driven by needs, that I'm not orienting my life around my values and that needs trump values. My values, in my perspective, are the soul design. They're my unique set of things that are mine to contribute in the world and my experience of the world, how I view the world, really at the core of who I am that make up my essence and my contribution here on this planet. But these needs distract me from actually orienting my life around my values. And what was also mind blowing to me is that it's orienting around my values or my soul design, which is actually where fulfillment lives. The thing I'm seeking when I'm looking to get my needs met, and there's just another need or another hole to fill or blah, 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 and it's exhausting, then, but orienting around one's values, I'm tapping into the source of replenishment always because I'm the beauty in me, the namaste, the beauty in me sees the beauty in you. Like that's being reflected back to me in everything I'm doing. And it's what I'm giving and it's what I'm getting. And it's this really beautiful, rich experience of being human that I don't get to experience when I'm over here clinging to and grappling to and unconsciously driving.
Same thing that you always got, that it's not what you need.
And yeah, and it's so disappointing. Like I remember when I went to Greece and I thought Greece was going to be all my answers. Like being in Greece was going to be the like the of like my like I was going to find everything I needed there. It was my pilgrimage, only to find out that, you know, wait a minute. And I literally said to my boyfriend at the time, this stuff wasn't supposed to show up here. Once
I'm
the
I
honeymoon,
left at home. Why did you
I
come here?
know, I know. I'm like, I just was really nasty to you. I left that back in Canada. I was so disappointed and so heartbroken. And interestingly enough, within 3 weeks of that first occurrence, I was gone. I went to another country. I went to Ireland. And
It's
guess what?
it's tiring, isn't it?
Oh my God, it's exhausting. Because,
Well, the
I
whole thing
look
is
back and
exhausting. Yeah,
I
it's
would move,
exhausting.
I moved jobs. I changed jobs. I changed friends. I changed this. I changed cities I lived in. I changed
It's exhausting.
career paths. Then I started changing countries. And then I thought, wait a minute, like, when does this end? But I kind of got away from what we were talking about, but not really,
No, not
because
really.
it's all connected as the experience of being human. And I also want to actually come back to what I was originally going to say, and that was that in the space of meeting people where they are, individuated or not, the opportunity, and I think you said something about this in our last podcast, the opportunity to complete that process is
Hmm.
always there.
Always there. That's the really, this is something that really like so important that you reiterated, and I'm very glad for that. That people need to understand that when we talk about the past and all that that has happened, first of all, doesn't mean that, first of all, as long as these needs are not met inside you, you will try to run away and try to complete it in the ways, just like you said, I'm going to run and try this, or learn from this book, or learn this technique. This is not what we needed when we needed a baby. We just needed a mom or a dad to be
We
attending
just
to
needed
us,
someone to stay with
to
us.
stay with us exactly without doing anything. And then we are eventually start doing to ourselves what was done to us, just to realize that we're exhausted, that we're still empty, that, it comes to my mind. Jim Carrey said in an interview lately that I watched, and he said, like, and that's something that I get a lot of my clients who are, very famous actors and directors and all that. And they say, he's not the only one, but I saw in his podcast, he said, I wish everyone would have the success that I had, so to speak. I wish everyone had to, because so many of us like, if I'm gonna be rich, if I'm gonna have 10 million in the bank and I'm gonna be recognized, then I'll be okay. So very few people are getting to that point, right? I mean, to get to have $350 million in the bank or way more, none of us are having that. I mean, very few. But he said, and there's so many others of my clients said, I wish people would have everything that I supposedly have to actually really realize, because there's nowhere to go at some point. I mean, whether you have $1 billion, $2 billion, you don't even know how many houses you have. So that doesn't work anymore. You can actually see that different than so many of us in a way that said like, oh, if I only get this, or if I only get that, if I getting something that I'll be okay, which is never
Mhm.
what. And by the way, in order to get that, they need to act. That's why so many actors are getting that, because if you go to
And
the
then they're
acting,
not real.
they're not. It's not
They're,
them.
they're
It's a
not,
part. No,
it's
but they can
really,
very, but they're
right.
very good in doing that, in being not them.
Yes, yes, which is, yeah, by being not them. Isn't that they're being rewarded for being not themselves?
Yes.
That,
Another part of it is sometimes they can be them in a role that they cannot be in their personal life.
yes, yes, which
So
is probably the
sometimes the
most
true
real.
self,
Mm,
sometimes it's either way. Either they can fake it very well and become so authentic, because that's the imposter syndrome professionally, in a way.
mhm,
They are
yeah.
professionally creating that and very good at that. It's not them. But I have also clients that are telling me, so I have people that are doing, they're very good in adapting and creating that professionally syndrome where they actually can be somebody else and it's so authentic for them. They can fake it so well. But there are others that are say to me, when I did that role, that's something actually which is very different in a way of how they present themselves in the world. And it is. But they say, Oren, it's actually really part of me. That if I didn't play the role, I love playing the role. But that's the permission they can be something that usually they can't. Overall, a lot of them, they played so many roles, are so don't even know who they are inside unless we started kind of talking about the permission to give them what they actually needed in order to not playing audio or become famous. They don't even now they wanted to become famous at the beginning because of that narcissistic wound, because they were never acknowledged as humans. Within the process of therapy, hopefully getting a dad here, a dad for their kiddo that raised them to be who they really actually are for the first time. Then all of a sudden what you see is that they might not even want to do what they did. They don't really, they want to They don't care about the money. They sell everything. They give, and I have quite a few examples of it. And they're the happiest that it can be. Not
Well,
because they don't care about recognition anymore, because they don't need that. They don't need it to be somebody that everybody look at. They love themselves actually at this
content,
point. Everything changes with
content.
ease.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you don't have to be a millionaire in order to get that. But
It's
the point was, it's like we so many times chase the answer that exactly what we got, that what we trust, what we knew. Always just to chase that some rather than say, you know what if I drove Toyota Corolla rather than a Rolls Royce? Would that, you know? So many people's like, no, no. Yeah, they can't even fathom that. It's like all based on external thing, and yet they go home because they see all the beautiful production and they're not in it. They're sitting in it, but they're a ghost. And
yeah,
that's how they feel.
yeah. Found. Thank you for that. Really good examples of what we're talking about. Really good examples that are relatable, but not because we're, lots of people are rich like that, but because it's something we
Kind
can
of
all
an extreme example to
but
actually
yeah,
manage to explain
but we
something.
see it, we watch it, and we
Yeah.
also, I think, idolize those people too.
Oh
So
yeah.
hear that from Jim Carrey. And it's interesting. I was being a little bit rude there and trying to butt in, but because it struck me, and it is a social scientist. I was at a conference once, and there was this social scientist who had done this research and stated that money actually does buy happiness up to $60,000 US.
Yeah.
So like after that, so that to your point is like, okay, you can have 350 million, but it's all those other things you just talked about that, I'm not in the role. I'm a ghost. I'm not, I don't have permission to be me. I get these big roles. I get all this money. I get all this fame, and I feel empty. And the experience of that, like the thought of that, actually, if it could break my heart if I let it. Like if I actually sat with what that might be like for someone to have that kind of world renowned recognition and yet feel alone. I know what it feels like to be in a full room and feel alone. But
Me
to
too.
feel like that in the world, ouch.
It
So
is. It is
we're at
ouch.
time.
You're
We're at
right. We're
and
time. We have
we
to.
love I love I love our
We
conversations.
need to
I hope
go.
other people are loving them. I look forward to them. And if other people aren't loving them, that's okay to me, because like this is just such a
Absolutely. It's that,
great
and
space.
to be continued. We'll continue from here. It is such a big thing. I think we want to continue actually with that trajectory because
Mm.
it's really something that millions of people experience. That emptiness that we try to feel. This is the emptiness that we didn't get what we needed really actually then at the time. Maybe next time, I think, Lorraine, maybe we'll talk about what we just had today before the
Yeah,
podcast because it is connected to that.
yeah, I'm open to that. It was a
Yeah,
tender. I did say to you, I wish we were recording this
I know.
after I'd been through all the feels.
That's
But we
okay.
said we were going to have real relational conversations. So the thought did come to mind that, I wish we were recording this, even though it would have been really vulnerable for me because it was real
Yes.
and because it's something that I am grappling with. And it's yeah. So, and also the
Don't
support of
have to go.
you.
So, and I want to tell to people, including you, we don't need to. We need to constantly check. I mean, I'm not sure that we need to check to see how comfortable it is for us to talk about things, and they're not like sometimes they're too vulnerable, and we don't want to share them, and and we can have a conversation without getting too personal in terms of things that might not be something that we want to share. That's something that we want to tell also people. It doesn't mean that everything needs to be out at the same times, but actually to be kind to yourself and say, this is safe for me and this is something that I don't want to share right now, but I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
So that's part of being kind to yourself and to others. And
Yes, and in that spirit of being kindness, I can, I can, I just need to say this at the end. It seems like I have these thoughts at the end all the time. That while we're talking about where the actual wound resides, which starts in, the very early stages of life, it can seem daunting to feel like, oh, I have to go back there. Some people don't, that's it's wherever you enter into that space of healing and or reflecting or whatever you want to call it, self-reflection, that you can get there. It doesn't have to be this daunting, because I can also
No,
hear and feel and understand people might going, well, I'm not doing that work. Like that's too much work. Well, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Or like, just no, I don't want to resurface that stuff. I don't even know what's there. I don't care what's there. You can just start where you are is the
exactly. And
only
start
place to
exactly
start.
and allow with kindness to exactly where you are without pushing. And just one more thing about that, when people say, I don't want to go to dig in the past is here in the
And
future.
no, you're not digging.
You're
It's
not
with
digging
you.
anything, it's just here. But in order so many times to heal it, you
Mhm.
have to go to the root and to all the experiences to grieve it and move on.
But
And
you
to
don't have to be taken there. You can go there
no,
organically
no,
in your own
no, you don't
process.
need to. No, you are exactly yeah. The wisdom in this is not to force anything. You be kind to wherever you are at that point of time. That's what actually babies needs. If you are giving them, they'll grow to be very easily and organically all they can be. And it's actually we don't have to do so much work other than just listen to ourselves, be with wherever we are with kindness and trust.
Mhm.
That's it.
Thanks, Oren. All right, be well, everyone, and you too, Oren.
Thank you, Lorraine. Happy, peaceful day and weekend for everyone that listens to us.
As we move into May tomorrow, May, the month of May
The
tomorrow.
month of May is tomorrow.
All right, take care.